What's up, people? This is Ajax. So I wanted to talk with you guys about dieting and how to diet properly and use refeeds and keep fat loss sustainable and not crash out your metabolism. And this is especially relevant if you are using any kind of GLP-1s, Ozempic, Mounjaro, semaglutide, tirzepatide, retatrutide. If you're using any of those, this definitely applies to you because the GLP-1s can reduce appetite significantly, obviously. They will make you eat in a large deficit, but if you start off with too steep of a deficit from the very beginning, you are going to end up at a fat loss plateau where you either just need more of the medication, more of the peptide, and or you're in a situation where your calories are so low that you start having muscle wasting, you start losing lean body mass, and we absolutely do not want that to happen. So this is how you diet scientifically. So let's start off with some basic concepts here. Basic concepts are metabolism. There's two numbers to know, okay? There is BMR, which stands for basal metabolic rate. That is how many calories you need to not die. That's how I describe it. If you were to sit on the couch all day and not do anything, what is the bare minimum number of calories your body needs to sustain its basic physiological processes? That is your basal metabolic rate. Now, your active metabolic rate, also called, or more commonly called, your TDEE, total daily energy expenditure, that's how many calories you, on average, burn per day. So to use very simple, basic, straightforward math, let's say your BMR is 2,000 calories. Nice round number. But your TDEE is 3,000 calories. And 3,000 calories, this would be your maintenance level of calories. If you were to go lower, that would be hypocaloric, that would be a deficit. You would start to lose body weight, body fat. If you were to go above 3,000, you would start to gain weight and you would gain some body fat and hopefully some muscle, assuming that you were lifting weights. Now, in the context of dieting to lose body fat, if our TDEE is 3,000, then that is the number we'd start off with subtracting 500 calories from and creating a deficit. A 500 calorie deficit that on average will lead to 1 pound of fat loss per week. This is the big mistake people make from the very beginning. So this is mistake number one for dieting. They don't know their basal metabolic rate, and they don't know their total daily energy expenditure. They don't know any numbers. They just pick a calorie level, or they don't pick any calories. They just start under eating by perception, and maybe they're successful in under eating, but because there's no math involved, there's no data, there's no way to be objective about their fat loss process. There's no system to it. To successfully diet, and I've done this for over a decade with clients, to successfully diet, you have to start off by determining your BMR and your TDEE first. The BMR is fairly easy. There's lots of calculators for that online. There's also calculators online to help you determine your TDEE. But the only way to know your maintenance calories for certain is to calculate your total daily energy expenditure. You have to get an estimation, find out what that estimation is, and then eat that number of calories for 1 week. And over the course of 1 week, you will get 7 days worth of data. And that data will be your body weight, which you will be tracking in the morning, every morning for 7 days, eating the exact same number of calories per day, and those calories are going to have a macro distribution to them. There's no secret percentage for macros. It could be 30, 40, 30. That's more than, 30, 40, 30. It could be 40, 20, 40. It could be 33, 33, 33. The macro percentage doesn't matter. Aim for 1 gram per pound of body weight or 1 gram per pound, 1 gram per pound of lean body mass in terms of protein intake. Your fats and carbohydrates, those can be split relatively equally. That really depends on your activity level and your diet. I always say that 33 33 split. That's gonna work for most people. It doesn't matter whether the numbers are slightly higher or lower. But going back to the fat loss estimation, we figure out our maintenance, we estimate it. We eat maintenance for 1 week. We track our body weight for 7 days. At the end of 7 days, we average out that number. And if our body weight has stayed relatively the same within a, let's say, like 1 to 3 pound range, then we know we accurately estimated our metabolism. Now, if our body weight starts to go down over the course of the week, we're not eating enough. We underestimated. If our body weight was to start to go up, we overestimated the calories. Makes sense, right? Now, let's assume that we have accurately determined our TDEE. Okay, we figured out our maintenance calories. Now, if we have a lot of body fat to lose, okay, let's say we got 40, 50, 60 pounds, 100 pounds or more, we have to acknowledge the biological reality that we are physiologically limited to 2 pounds of fat loss maximum per week. Yeah, and if you look at the data, maybe it's 2.2, maybe 2.3, but as a heuristic, 2 pounds of fat loss per week of pure body fat. Now, there could be accompanying water weight along with this, okay? There could be a loss of lean body mass in the form of maybe excess skin. Lean body mass and muscle mass are not the same thing. But 2 pounds of fat per week, that's what can be lost, okay? If we try to go faster than that, we're going to risk losing lean body mass, and not just lean body mass, but especially muscle mass. So we can't lose 5 pounds a week every week. We're just gonna start experiencing sarcopenia. 2 pounds of fat loss per week. Now, knowing that, how does that inform our fat loss process? Well, let's say you have, again, we'll use a nice round number, 50 pounds of body fat to lose. So if we were to lose 2 pounds of fat per week, every single week, with absolute consistency, we could do that in 25 weeks, okay? Now, let's say there are some ups and downs. Fat loss is never a perfectly linear process, ever. So more likely, let's say we lose 1 pound per week. Well, that would be 50 weeks. And let's say we get 1 to 1.5 to 2 pounds per week. So maybe we're looking at 36 weeks to lose that 50 pounds of body fat. And it could be a bit more because of the loss of, again, body water. It could be a bit less. But let's just say we're looking at anywhere from 25 to 50 with meal, maybe 36 weeks being the estimate to lose 50 pounds, okay? So you have to accept, this is like mistake number 2. People want to lose body fat really fast. At maximum, I can take off in 8 weeks. I can take 16 pounds of body fat off someone's frame. There's also usually a very large loss of body water, especially in the beginning, so that might be around 20 pounds. But that's not all fat. But past the 8-week point, that is again going to slow down. Imagine you still have 30 more pounds to lose based upon your 50 pounds of excess body fat. So we have many more weeks of dieting ahead of us. So we understand that dieting is going to be a long-term process. Bringing this back to the deficit, we do not want to start off with a super steep, dramatic deficit. What does that mean? If our total daily expenditure, got it, good reflexes. If our total daily expenditure is 3,000 calories, okay, and we immediately go into a 1,000 calorie deficit, we're at 2,000 calories. Will we drop body weight, body fat? Absolutely we will. But here's the issue. We're already at our BMR. So we've already hit the BMR already. So we've gone from our total daily expenditure and we're eating our basal metabolic rate level of calories. Now, we might get some fat loss out of this. We will, absolutely. But you are going to start feeling tired. There is going to be metabolic adaptation that takes place that slows down your metabolism. Your energy levels will decline. Your overall cognitive focus will decline. Your workout quality probably won't be as good. You'll be sleepy, you'll be tired, you'll be moving less. Your non-exercise active thermogenesis, daily activity and fidgeting and moving around, it's all going to stop. Your thyroid hormone might decline. There's going to be a corresponding decline in sex hormones as well. Testosterone will decline. That's what happens with metabolic adaptation to dieting, since you are in fact slowly starving your body. Slowly. So we don't want to go into a 1,000 calorie deficit immediately. And this is the mistake number 3 that the GLP-1 people make. And to be open, I have clients that use GLP-1s who I advise and how to incorporate them into the fat loss process. GLP-1s are incredible. Don't get me wrong. I'm very pro technology, pro medicine. But the GLP-1s can create fat loss disaster for people because they start off with a super fast deficit right away, not realizing how little they're eating. They start losing body weight. The GLP-1 dosage they're on naturally starts to work less and less because 1, the effects are going to fade anyway, but 2, they're in a, again, very steep deficit, so they have to start increasing the dose, and the higher you go with the dosage, the more likely there are to be side effects, obviously, over time. And you could be on the GLP-1 for maybe 2, 3, 4 months. You are still not close, or you're still not reaching your target body weight. Maybe you have a lot of body fat to lose, but you've already maxed out the dose. You can't take any more of whatever your GLP-1 is, whether it's, again, Ozempic, tirzepatide, retatrutide. You just relied on the GLP-1 by itself. You didn't do any of the mathematics of dieting and figuring out how long is it actually going to take to lose this weight in a sustained physiological fashion. So that's a big mistake people make. So to wrap up this whole point, when you start off your fat loss diet, you do not want to start with more than that 500 calorie deficit. That's it. Now, and you might say, but that's only going to be 1 pound of fat loss per week. There's a difference between what a textbook, what the science and evidence says versus what real life outcomes are. For the vast majority of people, if you put them in a minus 500 calorie daily deficit, the first week they are going to lose more than 2 pounds of body fat plus a lot of body water, especially if you're following, let's say, a low carb diet. So you can expect almost everyone, you'll lose that 2 pounds of fat loss. And in fact, you'll probably lose 2 pounds of fat loss for the first 1 to 2 to 3 weeks before you start having any metabolic slowdown effect happen. Now, this is a fat loss mistake, I think, we're on number 1, 2, 3, 4, between 4 and 5. I already lost count. Oh well, let's just call it number 5. So this is the number 5 fat loss mistake. People do not use refeeds. They don't use refeeds. They don't know what that is. And full credit, before I talk about this, full credit to 2 people, well, a couple people, but 3 people. Lyle McDonald for his research on dieting breaks and putting forth the concept of using refeed and being able to take a small but sustained period of time from a diet. So thank you, Lyle McDonald. Number 2, Scott Abel, who I learned the concept of spike meals / refeeds from. Number 3, Ken Skiphill. He calls them skip days. And then also number 4, John Meadows as well, who is one of my mentors, and he was very big on free meals and using refeed days as well as part of the dieting process. What am I talking about as I say all this? A refeed day is a purposeful day where you go off your diet, you eat a much higher amount of calories, so way more than maintenance. You just basically eat almost unlimited, and there is a temporary rise in body weight because you're going to have a bunch of water retention from the food, you're going to have a bunch of food in your belly, but this refeed leads to an increase in metabolism. So it slows down the metabolic adaptation. It somewhat negates that effect. Metabolism spikes back up temporarily, and that spike and that increased energy, that keeps your daily expenditure up in terms of your calorie, your TDE keeps that elevated for a period of time. And you will find that after the weight spikes up, you then drop down to a lower body weight than you did before. Now, this might sound crazy to people. I know any experienced diet coach, bodybuilding coach watching this, they're nodding their head. Yeah, that does happen. For the average person, they've never heard of this, ever. This is totally novel to them. You're saying that I eat a whole bunch, but that makes me lose weight? Yes, because again, going back to that metabolic adaptation effect that happens, that decline in testosterone, that decline in thyroid hormone, that decline in this neurocognitive function, the dietary slowness that happens, all the decline in neurotransmitters, basically, they're taking place. All that gets halted, and you get this big energy spike, and then you have awesome workouts. You're way more active. You're keeping metabolism up while also following your diet plan. And based off that one-day refeed, body weight again will go up, but then it drops back down lower than it did before. Now, and there's an art and a science to this. You don't just take a refeed day because you dieted for 1 week and decided, I was good for a week, I'm gonna blow it on the weekend. You want to see sustained fat loss over typically a period of 10 to 14 days before you do a refeed. And your calorie intake and what you eat that day will be, at least for the clients when I work with people, it is tailored to their body composition and their dietary psychological challenges. For someone who is really scared of overeating and can put away a ton of food, I might not give a refeed day. It might just be a refeed meal or a refeed half day. For a lot of clients, I have a lot of success using the refeed day as a very high carb day, very high carbohydrate intake, upwards of 500, 600, sometimes 1,000 grams of carbohydrates a day, which is actually very challenging to eat. Very high carb, very low fat, low to moderate protein, but that replenishment of muscle glycogen, that restoration of blood sugar, the happy serotonin and dopamine effect from getting all the carbs you want, that spikes metabolism up. People have awesome workouts post-carb refeed, helps their body weight drop down. So the refeed is always the missing piece in the long-term fat loss process, because if you have, again, 25, 50, 100 pounds to lose, you cannot diet hypocalorically for forever. You will go crazy. To keep that process sustainable, you'll need to refeed your metabolism. You'll need to adjust calories in accordance to what your total daily expenditure is, and also your basal metabolic rate, because if you start losing significant amounts of weight, your BMR will also change. The BMR of, let's say, if someone, round number, if you are 250 pounds and then you drop down to 225, your BMR will have declined because you weigh less. Pretty basic. But all of this is what goes into making the long-term fat loss process successful. And again, an art and a science. Amir Siddiqui, one of my favorite coaches, and he always used that term, so I'm borrowing that from him. But dieting is an art and a science. There's a science to it, and then the art is in the application. So that's how you diet successfully. That's how you lose body fat successfully. Whether you have 100 pounds to lose or whether you are dieting to single-digit body fat and trying to get shredded, the process applies to everyone. The application of it will differ based upon your own individual situation. Hopefully you guys found this useful. I know the whiteboard presentation demonstration is kind of all over the place, but if nothing else, it gives you a visual reference for the concepts. If you guys have any questions, let me know in the comments. Please like and subscribe to the channel, and I will talk to you all again.